One of the ways that I got it started with our family was my children, 5 children in not very many years, I always was untying and tying shoes. And it just exasperated me until one time I was down on my knees untying those knots, and I thought, what a great opportunity for a prayer. And then from then on, I look forward to that little task of untying their shoes and having a particular intention each time I did it. And so reading Pope Francis's devotion to Mary as the untier, undoer of knots, it made so much sense that whatever little intention I had, I knew that I was handing it off to Mary, and she could make sense of it. She could untie those knots. Health issues have been kind of prominent in our own family. We had one child who had quite a bit of surgery over her life and life-threatening illness. So looking back, they were benign tumors, but they were tumors that were wrapped around every major nerve and vessel in her neck and in her chest. And what a big batch of knots. But boy, we would say the rosary, maybe 3 times a day. Her surgeries were long surgeries. The longest was 12 hours. So looking back, how Mary interceded. We had a prayer card of Mary on her crib, and that would go with her to the operating room. And no one ever disturbed it. She always came back. We always felt like, she was the mother to our child when we couldn't be present with her. And she untied those tumors in a way, made it accessible to the surgeons to help her.
It's an interesting relationship because I think as a child I always thought of Mary as a mother figure and one that I could count on. And I've always thought of that she was just this teenage mom, really, this young mom, but yet there was a sense of wisdom about her. And all of that. And then the time that I called on Mary. I called on Mary with intention and purpose and with passion. And that was the night before our Robbie died. And we knew after he was 15 months old, he had heart disease. This was his second surgery in his short little life, and we knew soon after the surgery that he had gone into cardiac arrest, and they had induced a coma. And so for a couple of days there, we just never left his bedside. And that particular night, I remember begging Mary, as one mother to another, please, that I will take care of this baby no matter what condition, because they said most likely he had suffered some brain damage because he had been without oxygen for a while. So I am begging. I just didn't feel anything. I felt alone, so alone. The next morning, he did pass away. And there were so many great graces and experiences with his death and after his death and all that. But I pretty much said, Mary, goodbye. I guess I felt betrayed as a mother who put her heart out there. And I felt I got nothing, absolutely nothing. And I realized that in reading, I thought, I have shunned a really tremendous grace. I mean, all these things really came about through Mother's prayers. Mother's prayers is not only about us praying for our children, it is the Holy Spirit and Mary working within us, then, and helping us discover who we are as moms and as women. I went for an hour of adoration, one of my regular hours, and in the pew was a little pamphlet on the 7 sorrows of Mary, starting with Mary, the presentation of Jesus, and Mary being told by Simeon that her heart would be pierced with a sword, that she would experience with this child. And all of a sudden, I went through each one of those sorrows, and it was like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that I did not see this. But then, since then, I have thought, but Mary didn't intend me to see this or feel this in 1986 that night. But she, when I realized each one of those sorrows, and with my children over the years, she gave me that wonderful grace to experience all of those sorrows with her. And that made such a huge difference to me. I thought, the honor of being, because each one of those sorrows has allowed me to come closer to her son. I found myself on my knees so many times, and I realized that sorrow, the first one of being, your heart would be pierced. My heart was pierced the day we were told he had heart disease, that Robbie, and then it was pierced that day that they said between the surgery and getting him to the ICU, he had experienced cardiac arrest, and they didn't know it until they hooked him all up. And then watching him crucified. And again, it's Robbie in his little bed, and he's lying there, intubated, and they induced a coma. But at one point he woke. He was waking from that coma, and he looked up, and he could not say, he couldn't hear a thing because of being intubated. And one little tear just developed and ran down his side of his face. And his arms were outstretched on the little bed, and all I could think about was the crucified. And it felt like he had nothing. I mean, I would have done anything at that moment, and I suffered along with him at that time, and I thought, Mary did the same thing. And then the sixth sorrow, being given the lifeless body of Jesus, putting Jesus into her arms. And I remember reading something from a mystic who had said that when Mary was given Jesus' body off of the cross, that she bathed him, that she wiped every one of his wounds and cleaned all of them. And when Robbie died, the nurse said to me, "Would you like to give him a bath?" And at first I thought, I was really startled by that, but that was one of the most wonderful experiences that I ever had, was to hold him and just wash everything on him. And then, of course, his burial. And I thought, yes, Mary is leaving him behind, never to experience him as her human son again. And I remember very well handing Robbie over to, at the funeral home, walked in with him in my arms and handing him over and thinking I will never, ever hold him again as his mom. So after that adoration hour, I could do nothing but thank Mary for this gift. And I thought, you knew all along. You knew, and you've endured all these years of me just shunning you, but yet you never gave up on me. So turn to her and ask her to be with you. And I do feel so many times that she is holding my hand. She is just there holding my hand.